Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the show. Today is August 29th, 2025. This is the Daily AI Show. And with me are Andy and Jimmy. I'm Brian. And today on the show, it's sort of our grab bag, sort of a squirrel, sort of our whatever you want to fill in the blank with type show. It's our chance to just kind of not necessarily have a topic, but have many topics, see where it goes, see how we're feeling. It's three guys in three Hawaiian shirts. What could go wrong on a Friday before a holiday weekend in the States? So I'm looking forward to jumping into this with you guys. And I'll even throw one in there to kick things off because this actually comes from Gwen. And a lot of people know Gwen from our chat. So not in the chat right now, but she sent me these as LinkedIn messages. And one of the things she had sent me was a link to this article. I'll pull it up here in just 2 seconds. From Melanie McLaughlin, who she's the founder, chief AI officer at AIA Innovations. AIA Innovations. Okay. Anyway, I'm not familiar with her, but Gwen was sharing with that. So let's pull that up on screen super quick and just look at what she had to say about some new Claude sliders that you need to do in terms of privacy and things like that. And of course, we always want to know if things have changed or, we want to change how we're allowing some of these AI models to use our information. So here we go. And you can see here, the post says from Melanie, Claude, update the terms and policies today. This is from 10 hours ago. If you do not wish to allow your chats to be used for AI modeling training, you must move the slider in the image to the left. It looks like an image, but it's active. Sliding it to the left turns a model off model training, even if it was off previously. And I think that's probably the most important part there. Also, data retention is now 5 years. Click the learn more link to read the FAQ. I'm not sure why they used smaller font, but important info. So she's got some shares here where she's talking about, it looks like an image, but there's actually a slider there as well. Oh, there you go. She's actually doing a wonderful job of actually showing us where it is on there. So that's perfect. So yeah, thank you to Gwen. And then also thank you for Melanie for pointing this out because, these are the types of things that we want to keep on top of. And so many different models. And yes, we know the general tenets of what they will or will not allow things to share, but things do change. Even with Anthropic, which I think a lot of people, I don't want to speak for everybody, but a lot of people probably, they don't seem to get embroiled as much in the stories of the meta stories and stuff with data being maybe misused or sleight of hand with customers. But that also doesn't mean that Anthropic isn't changing their policies along the way. And sometimes that doesn't reach us, the end user. So kind of just a story to kind of kick things off. I wanted to make sure I shared that. I think Gwen had something else to share as well, but I'll bring that in later. But what about you guys? What's on your mind for this Friday morning? I mean, obviously, this week we've talked quite a bit as I was doing some reviews and putting together a newsletter. We've talked a lot about Google, so we can keep that train rolling. If there's more to talk about Google, but we talked about Notebook LM. We talked a whole lot about, a little bit about Nano Banana on Wednesday during the news, as well as some other Google stuff. And then, of course, you guys held down the fort on your own yesterday, talking about all the other stuff. I was listening to you guys about like Pixel 10 and all the other amazing stuff. So that was yesterday's show for anybody else who wasn't able to make it. But what else is on your mind? More Google stuff, or have you guys broadened and now you're out thinking about other areas of AI? What are you thinking about? I don't know. I'll throw it to you, Andy, first. What are you thinking about?
Yeah, I want to talk about the big rock that got thrown in the AI pond with the MIT study that found that 95% of the pilots in a small sample set of 52 enterprises that were covered, were failing, and only 5% were showing dramatic or reasonable accomplishment. Well, I want to provide a counterpoint to that because it didn't really sit with me right. It didn't feel right. It wasn't enough. It didn't explain enough about what's going on in AI today. And let me just start with this premise. What if that's just further reinforcement that existing enterprise workflows aren't particularly amenable to the inclusion of AI? It's not a bolt-on thing. And instead, native AI companies designed from scratch to automate lots of things using AI, including the whole idea that we've put forward, which is, okay, there's going to be a $1 billion unicorn company that is basically a person like me running a bunch of agents. The promise of that, it doesn't fit with, oh, these large enterprises trying to impose AI into the organization in the form of a pilot where they're saying, okay, here's a business process. We want to make this happen with AI. And with the exceptions of customer service and some marketing workflows, that really hasn't found it, a lot of poster child success cases, although 5% is brought across all of industry. If that's extensible as a finding, that's still a lot of AI implementation. So with that premise, I want to just say, I want to share my screen. I'll say that what didn't work for me was the idea that this is, not working in AI, but let me show this on the stream. This is the trajectory of revenue from the leading AI players. And I know it's an eye chart for you, but if you look at this, it starts in August 2023, and then you see where it really starts to take off is in January of this year. So 8 months ago. So 8 months ago, OpenAI, which is the red part of this graph, that was running at about $6 billion annual revenue rate. And now it's at over 12 billion. So it doubled. It doubled between the beginning of this year and now. That's OpenAI. Where's that money coming from? Not from enterprise? Well, it's coming from lots of different sources. It's a very broad adoption of paid use of AI. Now, the blue segment of that chart is Anthropic. And it went from right around here at the beginning of the year. I can't figure out what this span of the blue is in terms of numbers, but the span grew from this little sliver here to this span here. I'd say that's at least 4x, not double. So Anthropic is really driving forward. And a similar story, less of an expansion rate, is true for all of the other major players that cumulatively represent $18 billion of annualized revenues. Okay, so let me stop my share here and just say that those two things together make me believe that there's something else happening here. And so one of the things that came out of Applied AI, which is an organization that does observations of AI that I follow, said the study itself admits that it ignores the shadow AI economy. So this is just looking at the pilots that are official inside the organization. But the shadow AI is masking this massive adoption of AI tools by employees and teams outside sanctioned enterprise projects. Yeah, workers across industries are already transforming workflows in their own workspace using AI, and they may or may not be broadcasting that. We know there's some reticence about a professional saying, "Oh yeah, now I use AI 80% of the time, and my workload has dropped dramatically." Why? Because I have this really capable assistant at my side. And then at the other end of the spectrum, from that shadow economy of AI implementations in companies, are the ones where companies are trying to force all their users, all their employees, to use AI. Okay, look, we saw the news items about, okay, this company, several companies out there, I think Shopify is among them, said, look, from top down, we expect you to be using AI every day in your workspace. All right. So then you put those two things together, those two ideas, and I think that the incredible investments that are being made by the leading AI companies are being supported by their revenue growth. And there is plenty of evidence, at least in my personal experience, of a true transformation of the addition of AI to my own work product. And if I were still in enterprise, I would consider myself to be, a poster child, a case study of the actual implementation of AI inside the company. I think that's where most of AI is succeeding, and this creating this enormous demand for inference. And so the fear that AI is really not all that, I think, is way overblown. And there's plenty of people out there to support that as well, including Nate Jones, who said, I didn't really get that. The MIT study didn't
Well,
make sense to me either.
I mean, I quite literally work with, you guys know this. I mean, I work with companies all day, every day. I mean, not weekends, but I have a lot of billable hours out of a typical week. The high 90s of that are billable, which means I'm always working on some client's new AI thing. It's all I do, right? I don't run other parts of our Scaled, which is a sales consulting business. So I talk to clients all the time. I build solutions for them. I wrote a post about this over a week ago, just to this point, Andy. I said, I'm not at a 95% fail. I'm at a 95% succeed. It might be higher than that. And why is that the case? Well, at least for me, when I work with clients, I do not try to run when a crawl is what is required. And you have to meet your clients where they are. And what I think has happened in a lot of articles that have come out, because this MIT 95% certainly got the clickbait side of the world going, right? Is that when you looked at that study and what they were talking about, it oftentimes seemed to be like, oh, there was this homegrown sort of solution trying to be built. And what that means to me is that somebody, CTO, somebody with the right amount of knowledge and probably with the right skill set. I don't mean to say somebody wasn't trained to do this, probably got the ear of somebody high enough up and said, I think it might be good enough to get us where we need to be. And we may not need this other piece of technology anymore, whatever it might be. I talk to clients about that all the time. There's been several recent conversations, like recent conversations where I've said, I think I can eliminate that entire part of your tech stack with an AI solution. I could route right around it and you don't need to pay that money anymore, right? So it happens all the time. My point to this is when those fail to me, because a lot of times they try to eat the whole elephant. They're not trying to take it in small bites. They aren't looking even down to the role inside an area. For instance, I deal a lot with go-to-market. So I'm dealing with sales, marketing, customer success, VP of products, right? Anything that falls inside that GTM label, that's the people I deal with, not just salespeople, but anybody in that GTM era, right? And I get on these calls with people and I say, what are you doing? And if you're a VP of product, I'm asking you specifically what your pain points are. And then I want to know, what is your team dealing with? And then we're going to talk about all that stuff. And then once we're all said and done, we build Kanban boards that have a ranked order of solutions for that role and their team. I don't try to go out and say, let me build you an AI solution for marketing. That's a 95% almost guaranteed fail. It's too big, it's too broad, too many players. And what's going to happen is it's going to take you so long to get to a result, at least in my experience, that you're going to lose that initial wave of excitement of, wow, AI looks like it's really going to be able to help us out. So you better come with something you can build some small, quick wins with to get the base excited, to show them what's possible. And for me, that typically is what we would consider to be an assistant. That's a custom GPT, a gem, or a copilot, because they're easy to build, they're easy to deploy, and I can get a sales rep using one within 48 hours that drastically changes their day. That's where we start. That's where success is. And then we go, hey, folks that we're working with, we've already shown this solutions. It's already working and deployed in this area, this. We've got 4 of them. One's in products, one's over here in marketing, one's over here in customer success, but they're getting success with it. Wouldn't it make more sense if you brought us on as a go-to-market AI engineer, as an AI engineer with strategy, and we will just continue to build these solutions for you one by one by one. We will just keep setting them up and knocking them down. And that's how we're getting success with it. And it's worked really, really well for me and scaled and everything else. So yeah, I push back on this 95%, but I also think they're not talking the same thing I'm talking about, Andy. It's not what I'm seeing in the world right now.
I did have a follow-up question for you, Andy, and this is based on some other takes that I've heard online and whatnot about this particular report. Is this more of a case of not knowing or not surveying for buy-in? Because a lot of the problems that we see for companies, no matter their size, is the buy-in for the transformation or the need for it, either top down or bottom up. Is that factored into this research at all?
Well, I didn't read the research directly, so I can't say yes or no to that. But I think you raise a good point, which is that one of the obstructing factors here for sanctioned enterprise pilots is the reluctance of people who are already perhaps overtaxed in their current positions to figure out on their own how to incorporate whatever is being pushed toward them top down, rather than making it more organic and focused on a kind of AI literacy that introduces them to tools like custom GPTs that Brian's found so much success with in his sort of atomic implementations, rather than total function displacement. We're talking about empowering individual sales reps and by scales techniques, and that ultimately obviates the need to pay for some SaaS system that was supporting the manual process before. And so there's some efficiencies that will come down the line, but only when a certain tipping point from a number of active and eager adopters inside the company start to employ AI in their daily workflow.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think it's a good way to put it. Jimmy, you didn't really have a chance there at the top. So what is on your mind for this Friday? I was going to say Wednesday. I'm so used to being used to the way you saying it on the news show. I was like, wait a minute, hold on.
Yeah.
on this lovely Friday morning.
So the thing that's been rattling around, and this might just be something that I gravitate, is just to see what the trends are for entertainment, media, and art with AI, because it's very divisive, right? You have very strong opinions on things that are coming up, representation, organization, those kinds of things. But I'm a nerd, so I like to really nerd out on things, and I might have mentioned it off and on for the last few weeks, but I've been kind of concentrating on the SBC side of things, or single board computer, right?
What is that?
These SBC, single board computers.
All right, just define that for me really quick, because I'm not sure.
Okay. So essentially, an SBC is a miniature or micro computer, has all the components of a computing interface. So it'll have a chip that runs it. It'll have interface points or IO points. It'll normally be built for a specific purpose. Gotcha. Or it's hyper focused in the sense that, take Raspberry Pi. A Raspberry Pi is an SBC. It doesn't have a lot of compute power, but what it does, you're able to do very significant things. It can control lots of different things. And so one of the trends that I'm seeing is in AI, and how this crosses over with SBCs, is indie producers, right? Indie creators and artists. They some of them are trying to leverage the productivity part of AI in their process to compete at a higher level, right? If you no longer need as many hands to do something, or you don't need just the raw hours put in for certain things. This helps you develop and create your final product or your art piece or whatnot a lot more efficiently, so you can do more by yourself, lowering the barrier of entry for people who just have never done anything before. And where this crosses over is there's a project called CinePi. And this is essentially using a Raspberry Pi as the main compute and brain power for a cinema level camera. So now cinema level cameras, these cost tens of thousands or maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars at its most highest levels. But this CineBy project, and then there's a couple other ones too, but this is the one that I came across. They're using high-end sensors from Sony and other manufacturers to be powered by a Raspberry Pi to do all the necessary compute and processing of video, because Raspberry Pi can do like 4K video in its latest iterations. And there's other add-on boards that can do all of these processing as well. So you can have a high-end, high-resolution or high-fidelity camera built with off-the-shelf parts. And there's a lot of software that needs to go into it, and negotiating the finer points. But this is an open source project. Now you can add in an AI hat or an AI module onto that. So I imagine things like the AI module specifically for Raspberry Pi or other SBCs called the Halliday. It does something anywhere from 27 T-flops to 40 T-flops. And while that's nothing compared to an H100, which is like 2,500 T-flops, it is enough to run highly specialized, highly niche models that are fine-tuned for specific things. And we've seen how well things like Nano Banana functions. And we've heard from Google talking about their on-device models. So this all seems to be in line with the trend of highly specialized, smaller models running on device in an edge AI type of situation. So I want to see in-camera effects that are processed by the AI module and recorded through that core Raspberry Pi, so that I could make a $50,000 cinema camera with approximately $800 worth of gear. And then, of course, 3D print your own case and all of those kinds of things, and deal with heat things, and then just go out. If you could make a little kit that you could just like, oh, here, this is all you need to do to build, or you pay a little more extra and then you can just buy it. That lowers the barrier. I'm always a big fan of lowering the barrier and encouraging practice and education, literacy into exploring those things that you might have automatically thought, oh, I don't have time to invest in that, right? And it's just like when DSLRs came out, there was a huge boom in the independent like filmmaking or content creating world, because these were relatively inexpensive. Before then, you did have to pay thousands upon thousands of dollars to get the right kind of look. And then not to mention the whole sub niche of lenses, right? There are lenses that were made 50, 60 years ago that are still being used and resold and swapped because they have a specific look. Now, could you apply that just from a built-in or in-camera device with your AI by putting that part of the process? I don't know. So yes, hyper niche, but something that I think could be very interesting once that community gets enough people behind it and enough momentum.
It is a really cool use case. And I mean, it's not this part's niche, but what your story and talking about for that specific like use case effect does make me think of probably one of the TikToks. And so a lot of what I've seen on TikTok, because I'm sure, because I stop and look at them, so I see more of them, which is fine by me, is the really like sort of that 1-2 combo of Nano Banana plus Runway, and what people are doing with that. And it's truly transformative, because it unlocked the Nano Banana side, unlocked the ability to change. Obviously, we've talked about it this week, certain things. So if I want to do a freeze frame right now, but I no longer want to be wearing a Hawaiian shirt, then I could swap that out. I could do a lot of things, add facial hair, whatever, right? And then that freeze frame then becomes a jumping off point for what Runway can do, as well as other tools. But Runway seems to be the one I see a lot. And so people are able to switch them. And, in the one that's on my screen right now, the guy makes himself into a caveman, and he's in his own living room, but then he makes it a caveman in a cave, right? And he's showing how he's able to quickly do that. Well, another one I saw this week was somebody doing a cost breakdown, of which I can't validate because I don't know how much it costs either. But somebody had mocked up, it was a hand outside like the window of a car, and I think it was a Monster Energy drink, or maybe not Monster, maybe it was Liquid Death. And so people have been doing a lot of these product type things because they're showing how quickly you could make an advert for Liquid Death, right? Maybe because Burning Man is going on right now. So somebody might want to be playing on that out in the Nevada desert, whatever. Anyway, I guess the AI video that was created had several different shots or whatever. And so he did some research and he said, look, on the low side, this commercial to be done is like 30,000, but that was really like the low side just because of cameras, people, hours, locations, the whole yard, And so he said, people wanted to know, like, what would this reasonably take to do? And so he broke it down. And basically what he was saying is like each VO 3 generation cost about $1 the way he had it worked out. And some of them took up to, I think the high end was like 19 iterations to get that video correct. Right. So then he did all the math there, and that came out to whatever it was. It was like, $1,500 or something like that, whatever it came out to, maybe a little lower on that side. And then he's like, and of course you have to pay the person for their time. Somebody's got to be an actual editor who knows what they're talking about, even using these AI tools, yada, yada, yada. He's like 3,000, 5,000 at the high end comparative to 30,000 if you were to do this with real live actors and stuff. Now, I'm not here to debate should actors be used, where is AI appropriate. I know Netflix just came out with a new standards about using AI, and that's something we could talk about too. I'm just here to say, how does something that's that different and cost effective, I don't care if you throw all the laws at it, all the roadblocks, how are media companies or whoever makes commercials not going to turn to this and use this as much as possible? I'm not saying it works for everything. There's plenty of times where it's going to make much more sense to have human actors because of the role of the situation, whatever. AI is not going to be able to touch it for 1,000 different reasons. But now if you're the client, if I'm Liquid Death and they pitch me 3 different commercial ideas that all have something to do with Burning Man, let's just say, right? Assuming that's the same crowd. That's who they want to reach, are Burning Man people. And they pitched me 3 and they're like, this one, or this one. I'm like, I don't know. I mean, all 3 are pretty cool. They're like, oh yeah, the one in the upper left, that one's fully AI created. That shit only cost you about $3,000. I'd be like, so I'm not saying every company is going to do this, but like 30,000, 50,000, 3,000. And we can deliver to you probably within a week.
Yeah, they're definitely going to make that choice. In fact, just for A/B testing, they're going to make that choice, right? It's like, oh, we normally pay $30,000 for a project. Okay, cool.
Right.
We're going to do that, and we're going to add on this AI component. Oh, look, the AI component did just as well. Well, I guess we're going to have to reevaluate, right? Yeah, you're right. It is going to be a difficult waters to navigate in terms of when and not when to use AI and people as throughout the process. I think it will be pretty clear for the marketing space because that's always been commercial and return focused, right? They don't care about making art. They care about having an effective campaign. Yeah. Now, an effective campaign or brand, an artistic look or an artistic base behind it may be their intention. But for most marketing, most advertising, it's going to be what is the return. If we don't have to pay as much, then they're not going to pay as much.
They're going to want to know the ROI.
Right, exactly. And how that's gonna affect into more art-focused areas, such as film and shows, video, that kind of stuff, that I think will be hotly contested forever, really. But I think because marketing and advertising is focused on the business side of things, they're going to be the ones that adapt to a whatever the best return is, or for them, and that's what we've seen in the past, and I think that's what we'll see in the future.
What do you think, Andy?
Yeah, I obviously the whole pipeline for video production is being disrupted and economized by AI. It's gonna dramatically affect all the attendant components of what is currently a pretty enormous industry for the production of video that way.
And I think some people are going to catch this that are great at photography or great at editing or whatever, and they're going to capitalize on this, because what they're going to say is, I have this expertise, but I've also trained myself and I know how to use the right prompting to get the best results and lower that cost, like that token cost as well. And when you combine my ability to write great prompts and get great edits out of the AI that you're going to love with my knowledge of, lenses and all these things, because your point, Jimmy, like virtually you should be able to put it and say, well, like this kind of lens flare or whatever the case is. You can kind of do that now. I was taking old photos the other day and using a DSLR example for it and to bring a certain look to it. Look, some people, it's going to be disruptive, obviously. Some people are going to capitalize this and find their new passion. And it's going to be because they've had 15 years of experience with editing and they know exactly what they're doing. And they've been doing it the long way. I see this no different than people who moved over. Like I've always said, my buddies kind of came out of college right as CG, computer graphics, like as far as like Pixar movies. Pixar hit like in 95, I think. My buddy was in college at a art college at Ringling School of Art and Design, south of me in Sarasota at that time. I mean, imagine, right? You talk about an inflection point. Now, did continue animation continue after that? Of course it did. Is there still highly successful video movies like Wallace and Gromit that are stop motion, or Tim Burton movies and stuff? Yeah, of course. Those continue to go on. But a lot of movies did move over to that, CG side of it, the Pixar style, DreamWorks and it ended up being the career that my buddy had. But I think he thought he was going in to do traditional animation, literally flip the page animation. And he was so good at that, he was at the right place at the right time, and he pivoted. And now him and his wife, who he met later, but both of them work for Pixar and have been doing so for many, many years. I've done many films through Pixar, and my buddy was at DreamWorks before that. So I don't know. Some people are going to make out just fine with this because they're going to heed the warning and they're going to run full tilt with this. And I think others are going to be making artistic commercials because it'll still require that human element to it, Mind you, I have no experience in this field. So like, I'm just talking this caveat there. If anybody didn't catch that, right. I don't have any experience here. It's just what I'm seeing.
Yeah, no, I think your estimates is pretty spot on. This might be my own hyper focus, but what I really like to see from these trends, especially when we hit things like milestones, like the consistency and output of things like Nano Banana and improving in that editorial speak and consistency, track and things like that, is we have a new set of tools. And they are more empowering for an individual. So someone could make their own television show, their own film, right? And that lowers that barrier. And I've said this before. What I like to see is these trends that might not necessarily be tied in with AI as well, but are more about independent filmmakers, independent content creators, and using a new variety of tools to accomplish whatever the content they're trying to create. And one of those things is this micro series stuff that's coming out of East Asia. like Korea, Japan, and China, is micro series, which are essentially like 10, 15-minute vignettes, essentially, or chopped. A full-size show is normally anywhere 20 to 40 minutes, but these are chopped up to be multiple pieces. And much like the success of online reading material or graphic novels, if you've ever heard of Webtoon, what they'll do is they'll give you so many chapters for free to see if you like what the story is about. And then you pay for the service to get the newest chapters or the newest segment. And I don't know if we've had this before. I'm sure someone in chat or the internet will correct me if we've seen this cycle before. But now we can get these 10 to 15-minute micro shows, micro videos, and people are spending so much time on their phones they can just watch it while they're traveling, mass transit, or like how people here listen to podcasts. This is remnants of the old Vine platform and things like that, right? Micro videos, and sort of kind of where TikTok is a little bit is in the same space, but this is more a concerted platform for specifically TV show watching. So these micro series are very popular in East Asia, and now they're starting to come over here with a couple of ex-Vine folks who are restarting things to have a US presence again. And they're, to me, like, I need to dive deep in the technical aspects about this, but to me, there's a huge AI play somewhere in this process. Maybe it's something like how showrunners trying to do with their animated series, self-made Netflix, those kinds of things. Or it's a matter of processing or quality, upscaling. I don't know. It might be there. It might be is part of the whole production process. AI has a play in here, because I figure with micro series, you're just really pumping those out, right? Because that, from what I understand, it's here's a whole arc that they're doing. Might be an hour in the end, or maybe 2 hours, like a 2-hour movie, but they chop it up in such a way, and they script it and film it in such a way to where they're giving these small chunks. So definitely more to dive into that and see how AI might play in that kind of space. Because anytime there's a new platform or new opportunity, a new pond to dive into, that really gives you that opportunity to shape it into what you kind of want to see. Whereas more established or traditional vectors or venues or distribution might not allow for enough wiggle room to try something new and see if it hits or not.
Yeah, that's really cool. I like that. I'll do a quick share here, and then I want to make sure, Andy, you got a little more time before we wrap things up. Assuming you have another thing you want to bring up, but Jude was bringing up, like, we were talking about movies and stuff, and he's like, music too. And I was like, oh, thanks, Jude, for a reminder on that. So thank you, Jude. I'm going to share this really quick. I don't think this is necessarily new, but I don't think that matters, right? Like, I didn't know this was a thing until I saw somebody on TikTok doing this. So in Suno, which I'd only really used Udio to this point. And I know a lot of people are like, Suno. And I was like, I don't ever really love what it sounds like. And also, by the way, I don't know that you can't do this in Udio. I didn't check. But what he was showing was, and I will play just a smidge of this so you can hear what I'm talking about, because listen to this real quick. You guys can hear that?
Bummer.
Well, first of all, it would help if I was sharing my screen. So let's try that first.
Oh, yeah.
How about?
Yes.
Okay, so that's clearly just somebody playing guitar. Well, it's me playing guitar, right? I'm playing one of my acoustic guitars in the back. And this is what I found so fascinating, because I never knew this was possible. With Suno, I can play my own song and sing into the same mic at the same time. Not only will it pick up all the chords, all the chord changes of me playing an acoustic guitar, but it also pick up all the lyrics that I'm singing. And then what you do is you use that as your input to say, well, what do you want to create out of this? But based on that chord structure. So I wanted to write a song, and it's this one up here. I wanted to write a song about this place that I used to go to in Orlando way back. Anybody that's from the way back in Orlando might know a place called the Big Bamboo. And when I tell you the Big Bamboo was a dive bar, if you've ever been to a dive bar, when it rained really hard, the parking lot would flood, and they would literally just put a sign in the middle of it that said Lake Big Bamboo, right? Like, this is the kind of place you're at. They weren't trying to fix anything. You drank out of mason jars. In fact, the first time I was ever there, I was actually there with my wife, Amanda, but way before we were ever dating. We were just part of a bigger friend group. And I said, I'll get the next round. And I mean, it was probably like 50-cent beers at this. I was like early 2000. And I went up to the bar, and the bartender just goes, "Where are your glasses?" I was like, "Oh, go get our old glasses." He's like, "Yeah." And so I had to go back to this table. The table was one of those big spools that they put up the lines for like your power lines and stuff. And the seats were old, ripped out airline hanger seats, like airline seats, right? You've got the vision of this place. It also was the place that all of your hospitality people would go to hang out, because no tourist would ever dare walk in the Big Bamboo. It would look scary from the outside. So all your Disney folks, all your cast members, they would go there. And when you left, you would famously go there and take your tag, your Disney Brian tag, and pin it to the wall. And so the place was filled with thousands, back to the wooden ones of the old ones. Well, the hurricanes eventually took down the Big Bamboo, and it no longer exists, but it lives on in all of our minds. And so with that, I'll just tell you that, like, what I did is I took my acoustic plus some initial lyrics, and I said, we'll remix this into a bit of like a Kenny Chesney. I want some horns in it. I want some fun. And now listen to what it was able to do with that. This blows my mind. The same chord structure. They hear it?
I once met a girl at the Big Bamboo. Tan lines, flip-flops, I already knew. My friend said she'd be the death of me, but I still had to buy her a drink just to see if she'd break my heart like all the rest. I'm a sucker for a heart beating out of my chest. I know what they're saying, I'm on a highway to hell, but I can't quit this habit. She's got me under her spell. I'm on a downward spiral, but I ain't lost in a bottle of Jack. I got a heartache addiction, and it's drinking me under the table fast.
I mean,
I love it.
That was a fun tune, Ryan.
AI obviously has a lot to do with that.
Sure.
I wrote the original chord structure. I played that song on my guitar very roughly up on the 3rd fret, just played it. I had the lyrics I want to start to. I'm still working on verse 2 and verse 3 because I have a heartache addiction. It's tricking me on the table fast. So he meets a girl at the Big Bamboo, right? Then they get married too early. Simple country chord structure here idea. They get married too fast. Everybody says it's a bad idea. Cut to 20 years later. The girl from the Big Bamboo is the wife, right? Have a kid, whatever the thing, wherever it goes with the song. It's a typical chord structure. So like, that's what I'll eventually get done with it. I'm still working on the other lyrics, but how cool is it if you can just generally play a little bit of instrument? I can hold my own. I can't really sing. I can harmonize a little bit, but I can't sing. And then to be able to put that in and be like, help me make this bigger. There's no world in the past where I would have ever heard that song produced like that. Ever.
Now,
and now you can just do it on your couch.
Remind us, you mentioned at the top of this little segment, Udio and Suno.
Well, this is Suno.
This is Suno, but Udio is there. Are they keeping up with that, or
don't know?
We don't know. Okay,
I don't know. I didn't know it was even a thing until I saw a guy literally doing it. Now this guy was like, he's a real rocker guy. Like he's cool. I like him. But he was playing on TikTok and he was like, all right, I'm throwing a hard. He's like, there's about 7 chord changes and different. He knew the pitches, like he had knowledge, right, of understanding guitar. And he'd be like, ooh, it picked up the D7, D minor 7 or whatever. I would have no clue if I was listening to that, but he could hear it. And he's like, oh, that's a nice fill. Oh, that's well placed. So like just listening to his knowledge and listening to Suno, I am sure it's even better. But like the horn fills in there, where it's pulling and it's filling in the space of the acoustic guitar.
Aside from the musical quality, what I think is wonderful about it is that you can create something that's sentimentally meaningful to you and Amanda.
Yeah.
And nobody else in the world may understand the Big Bamboo. It is such a niche little thing that happened in a window of time and in a small place, but in a culture large enough that there might be tens of thousands of people who would know the Big Bamboo. And if you could incorporate that into something that's really personalized, wow, that's a new era in music.
So cool.
So I got two things. Number one, there's been a call for you to share the song link. So
I won't until
just give a little bit. Just give a little bit in the community, which you can join by going to the dailyaishowcommunity.com and joining our Slack channel if you haven't already. And the second thing is, and I know we've kind of mentioned this before with when 11 Labs added their music creation ability. So Music Generation, Suno, 11 Labs, Udio, Gareth's mentioning another one called Producer. I've never heard of that one. But these music generation platforms and tools, we got to fill the space from Lo-Fi Girl leaving. I want to hear a Brian Radio on YouTube. Or just why not? If you can generate dozens or more songs, why can't you have your own radio station? Why don't you have your own Spotify radio station, your own YouTube radio station, or expand upon that? Maybe iHeart should have an AI or personalized section so that you can follow somebody's personal radio station.
And listen, look, I'm not going to Nashville anytime soon, but what this enables me to do is, if I'm not a great singer, but I could put a tune together, I can, I'm not saying I can, but if I was okay, that I could actually send my raws, or I could send 4, 5, 6 different versions of this exact same chord structure and song, and just have Suno layer it differently. Well, do you want it slower? Do you want it faster? You've always heard people say, like, you can make any song sad by just dropping to a D tuning or whatever and singing song. And it's fun to watch those videos because it's like some happy-go-lucky song, like Happy by Pharrell. There's a guy that does it as a sad song. And you're like, man, that's a depressing song called Happy. And he's just showing how you can change it with a chord structure. So you can imagine now people have the ability, just like in film, to say, hey, I'm not going to leave it up to you to have to come up with, like, is this a hit or not? Here's 4 different versions. I'm going to hold to the side what Suno owns or does not create on the platform. That's part of it, obviously. Okay. But it gives you the option now to get your voice out there in a different way, because clearly that's not me singing. You don't want to hear my version of it singing. That is obviously just the AI style of it, but it's got the heart of me. I can change the lyrics. Anyway,
before you go on, so you added guitar and you gave it the basic chord progression. What about the lyric? Explain a little bit more about
it. Transcribed the lyrics right out of me singing into the mic.
Okay, so you had actually written the lyric previously.
In my case, I did. Yeah, you don't have to. You could have just given it a chord structure, and it would have. I don't think Suno is good at writing lyrics. I definitely think Udio is slightly better. I'm usually like a little cringy when I hear Suno written lyrics. It's just it puts too much emphasis on a word rhyming versus it kind of making sense, in my opinion. I think it'll get there, by the way. It'll get more complex and whatever. I just don't think it's there. So no, I wrote the lyrics and just sang it right into the thing, which is why I don't want to play more of it, because then it gets into like the second part, but it didn't keep the same timing of my lyrics to the chords because I added the lyrics second. So I got to go in there and play with it a little bit more. But I fully intend to finish it, and then I'm more than happy to share it with people if that means you want to hear a silly little song about the big bamboo.
We'll
Go look up the big
blast.
bamboo.
We'll put it on blast here at the ranch.
Yeah, of course. Of course. All right. Well, listen, I took a little more time with that than I meant to, but as we're wrapping things up, anybody want to add any other things they're thinking about? I'm gonna look for the picture of the big bamboo and see if I can share it with you guys.
Yeah, please do. And I had two other things I wanted to talk about today, but they're both bummers, so I'm not going to. I'll hold them. They're just kind of more negative, and you left us with such an upbeat, creative oriented approach to AI. I don't want to throw in the other stuff that I was going to talk about.
Well, I will close on one thing. Gareth said that one of the songs that he created got 500 views. So here's a call out for the community. Gareth, if Brian's going to share his, you got to share yours.
Right,
so join the dailyAIcommunity.com, join the Slack, and we should have like a creative channel where we just dump our creations into it. The barrier is lowered. Is lowered. So
okay, this is really tiny. I apologize. I cannot make this bigger because I will. Yeah, yes, I can. Yes, I can. Okay. It's grainy because it's an old photo, but this is the Big Bamboo Lounge and package store. I do not remember the package store. In fact, what I remember is that's really grainy, I know, but that's the inside of the bar, right? That's kind of what I remember. You could see all that like stuff on the ceiling is either dollar bills or like here you can see all the tags. These are all the Disney and Universal tags with everybody's names on them. They were all over the place in the bar. This is the way I remember it. It had this like lookout tower or fire tower, and it said the Big Bamboo Lounge. And at some point, the BAM fell off, and it was just the Big Bamboo, and they just never fixed it. It was just that kind of place where it was like there you go. Oh yeah, the big is missing. See? Like the BI of the BIG is missing on it. That's kind of how I remember this place. It was a dive bar. If you ever get a chance to be part of a dive bar and go and be a local at a dive bar, I highly recommend it. We have some of the best in Florida.
To be young again. I wander into one today. So
yeah. So all right. Well, listen, we'll wrap it up there. This is fun. I always love these conversations. We'll do this again next Friday too. By the way, we're just gonna have an open, fun conversation. It might be the three of us. I know Beth is out, so we'll see. We'll rinse and repeat for a whole bunch more. Yeah, it is Labor Day on Monday here in the States. But we're still gonna have a show. So expect 5 shows next week on Monday through Friday, always at 10 a.m. Eastern. So come back and hang out with us all next week. Don't forget tomorrow morning on just Spotify now. I was doing them on YouTube, but just on Spotify now or Apple Podcasts, you can listen to our Conundrum episode. Decided to just make that just audio because that's where a lot of the traffic was. But on Sunday, you can read the newsletter. It comes out at 8 a.m. on Sunday morning. How do you get that newsletter? You would go to thedailyishow.com, and there's an super easy place to sign up for it. And of course, like Jyunmi said, you can always join us in our community, which is a Slack community. It's free. And then you would go to that by going to the Daily AI Show community.com, and that'll get you into the Slack community. And when I finish the song, that's where I will post it. So there you go. When it's done, we'll be able to all rock out in some Slack channel in the Daily AI Show community. That's it for today, guys. Have a wonderful, hopefully 3-day weekend for some of y'all. Yeah, until Monday, we'll see you.
Aloha.